This feels good. Glad to be here today. Welcome back, everybody who may have joined us earlier. This is our third video on this new YouTube channel called Think for Change. And the title of this series of videos is Reason and Beyond. So we are exploring thinking, reason, mind, and we are exploring from and including the spiritual perspective, but of course we're including all the human perspectives. And the reason I'm doing these videos, same reason I have done the book from whom these ideas are being drawn. It's my latest book. It's called Reason and Beyond. The subtitle is Knowledge, Belief, and Spiritual Transformation. This book is in production. It won't be out until next spring of 2019. But there are a number of ideas I covered in that book, and these are themes. These are really, to my mind, to the mind of others, I hope, these are really critical ideas, things that are very good to think about at this time. And the reason I call this channel Think for a Change is because I feel at this time, and I think many others do as well, we need, as human beings, as a society, as a civilization, we need a new way of thinking. We need to be thinking differently, to be seeing things differently. And in order to do that, we have to question the way we think now. We have to become aware of our thinking. We have to become aware of the beliefs that we have that drive our thinking. And we have to become aware of why we think what we think. And actually, if you pursue that whole process of thinking, feeling, what we generally find out, at least in the beginning, when one begins to seriously become introspective, you begin to discover how ignorant we actually are of the workings of our own mind. Now, most of us have some idea, some understanding, I would say, of perhaps of who we are or our general character or personality. We have some understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yet, there is a tendency, virtually all of us, in our minds, in our thinking, in our belief system, our unconscious beliefs, many of our beliefs, are unconscious, right? They reside in what's called the unconscious regions of our mind. And we call them unconscious because we're no longer conscious of them. Now, some of these ideas and beliefs we can recall through memory. Some we may not be able to. And yet the way the mind works is that unconscious and all the thoughts and the beliefs and the experiences stored there. And these thoughts and beliefs, experiences also carry with them a certain emotional charge. Some of them may be positive, some may be negative. Everybody has had traumatic experiences, has felt fear. Everybody has felt mistreated, etc., etc. So there is a whole, I would say, a whole reservoir, call it material, a whole configuration of thoughts, feeling, emotions, and energy. We could call that energy that we are carrying in our minds, that we are carrying below the level, below the threshold of conscious awareness. And everything that is in our mind, in that unconscious, affects our conscious functioning, affects our conscious thought process, actually drives it, affects how we respond, affects our perception, how we perceive. Perception is an interesting thing. You might think, for example, let's say 5 or 6 of us are watching a particular thing. You might think we're all seeing the same thing. And actually, and because we're seeing the same thing, if asked to describe it or talk about it, our understanding of it our description would be the same. But that's actually not the case. Perception is an activity, again, that is influenced by our state of mind and by what we carry within, by attitudes. It's influenced by many different things. And this is something that has been, like for example in law enforcement, they discover that. There'll be something that happened, usually something that's a crime or some activity that is against the law, and there may be a number of witnesses, and they will be interviewed, and yet each witness will see it sort of differently. There'll be different elements that he or she has picked up, has noticed, and hasn't noticed. So perception is actually not this kind of blank activity that we may think it is. Our perception is affected by our mind, by what's in our mind. And it's not only the activity of our conscious mind, but it is all of that that is in the unconscious, which has such an influence, such an effect on our conscious mind. So the point that I'm getting at here, what's real important, in order to come to a new way of thinking, right? In order to actually, let's say, attain that, in order to be able to turn in a new direction, we have to become aware of where we are right now. Yes. We must become aware. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. H2O, good stuff. Right out of the tap. Anyway, we must become aware of our minds as they actually are, okay? Not our mind, our awareness as we think we are. Those aren't really the same thing. And why is that? Well, again, it has to do with what I have been talking about, what we are carrying in our unconscious. Now, each of us has many ideas about who we are and what we are, about maybe our strong points, our negative points. And there is a tendency in human mind, there is some of what perhaps we are, or we think, or we feel, that we tend to suppress. As the old joke goes, denial is not just a river in Egypt. Denial is a kind of a river that runs through the human mind in general, my mind and your mind. So in this process of learning to think in a new way, now that's what spiritual traditions are trying to get us to do, among other things. Of course, they're also trying to take us beyond the thinking process, again, as I mentioned in the last video, to actually discovering and freeing up our mind, our consciousness itself, so that it can return to its foundation and we can experience truly what we are. I'm not going to go into that right now. But we always must start, say, in changing our mind, we begin with where we are. And we have to see where we are honestly and how we think. We have to get a very deep and complete and honest picture of what we are and how we respond. Now, the only way to do that is to become aware of our thinking and feeling, that movement in our consciousness throughout the day, you see. Because your mind, my mind, our minds are always active. Always active. Of course, there's the perceptual activity, which, as I mentioned, is not a blank slate. It's affected. There is a measuring and a sorting out that goes on, and that is so fast, that's pretty much unconscious. In addition, there is the way we judge things according to our thoughts and our beliefs and our attitudes. There are our emotional feelings, our emotions, feelings we have about things, our reactions to things. And those feelings and emotions as well are coming up as we go through the day, right? Life is very varied, isn't it? It's constantly changing. Even if you live a fairly quiet, stable life, the people around you are changing. They're in different moods. You're in a different mood. So the mind is constantly active, constantly busy, and there's a constant stream of thoughts and feelings, perceptions. And the only way to get to know it, and because it's constantly changing, now it does tend to follow certain patterns. That is the way the mind likes to operate. And this is another thing that the spiritual traditions try to undo. Okay? They try to knock us off this kind of niche, or yeah, kind of like a ledge we crawl up on and where we want to stay. Anyway, the mind, even in its great activity, nonetheless tends to stay within certain parameters. Okay? It has established certain patterns of functioning. And this also we must become aware of. So as we move through our day, if we really want to get to know ourselves, there are the more static methods. People go into psychoanalysis. They do, I guess there are different kind of practices and techniques by which, to get to know your mind, to try to reprogram your mind. But before you, in effect, retrain your mind, you have to see what is there that would get in the way of that training. You have to look at the training that's already there. Now that has been called, excuse me, I'm going to have another sip of water here. That has been called conditioning. There is a kind of conditioning influence that operates continuously on us, and it has operated on us since we were infants. Now that is our background, our parents, our experiences as we grew up, our education, the media, and all the background cultural beliefs and values of the civilization, of the culture in which our life has arisen, right? In which we have been functioning as human beings. All of that comes to bear. I know I'm covering a huge area here, but I'm kind of trying to fill in this big picture, because mind is an amazing thing. So all of that comes to bear on who you are and what you are in your mind. Not only on who and what you think and feel and believe you are, but who you are in all those areas where you are not aware or where we may be in denial. So this whole process of getting to know my mind, getting to know myself as I really am, in other words, is quite an intense process. And it is, in Buddhism, they call it mindfulness. One of the very basic practices, Buddhism really focuses on the mind, on retraining the mind. It's a spiritual tradition that for 2,600 years has worked on helping people to become aware of the movement of their mind. And not only Buddhism, but other traditions as well. But in Buddhism, one of the main practices, I would say, that's also true in some of the yogas, that's also true, I work with a teaching called A Course in Miracles, very profound teaching that's been given more recently in the modern era. And all these traditions emphasize what's called mindfulness, which is what I've been talking about. Now, mindfulness it's not really a technique, but it's a constant sort of practice or remembering to be present here and now in my mind, to be aware of the movement of thought and feeling, to see myself and my mind as I really am, as it really is, as I move through my life, as I move through the various activities of my life. I'm just checking the time here. I don't want to run too long. So mindfulness is a very, very, very important practice. And it's very simple and fundamental, and it takes years and years, even many years to really get to know our minds deeply. But the question I always ask is, what else do you have to do? I mean, what else is there to do in your life, right? It is your mind that makes your life, your decisions, your perceptions. Our decisions, our perceptions, the way we see things, our attitudes, conscious and unconscious, that's what shapes and creates my life and your life. And so it is all of that I have to become aware of if I want to change my way of thinking, change my way, which changes my way of being, which will change the activities or the actions of my life as well. It's all part of that one movement that is life. That is life. Well, this is quite a bit of material. I think maybe I've gone on long enough here. I don't want to take this one too much further. Okay, so I thought what I would do to end this video, there is we can call it an energy or a force or a power that's called, in spiritual life, it's called light, or the light with a capital L. It's also called the divine light, the spiritual light, the clear light, Christ light. It's mentioned in various spiritual traditions, and this light is a fundamental energy or creative action of your higher mind, your whole mind, remember earlier I was talking about consciousness, just as it is, not being simply its activities, but extending beyond its activities, just like your being is not simply your existence right here, it is much deeper and more universal than that. Light is an aspect of all of that, and it is the creative action, creative extension. It is the radiance of what you really are. So I kind of changed gears here, didn't I? But I think this would be a good time. I would like to end this video, for those of you who would like to join me, just for about 30 seconds, we will just join together in the light. So those of you that want to do that with me, if you would right now, just go ahead and relax. Just let your body sink down in the chair. Let your stomach be soft, like a bowl of jelly. Let your shoulders drop down. Feel your heart just open. And go ahead, close your eyes. And just relax your breathing. And all you need to do is just be open, receptive, and relaxed, because this is the light of your mind as well as the light of my mind. We are joining together for a moment in that which is highest in us. So if you want to join me, please just go ahead, close your eyes. Oh, that feels good. I think that's enough for now. So I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us for the next video. This was video number 3, and we're going to continue our exploration of consciousness, mind, this new way of thinking and being, and I don't know, we'll just see where we can go with it. So God bless you, and God bless us, each and every one. I hope you have a good day, a good week, a good month, and thank you again. Bye-bye.